Hey there, my name is Kevin Bullard, and I am the Chief Leadership Officer here for the City of Garland. And today I'm honored to sit down with Scott LeMay, the Mayor of Garland. How are you?
I'm doing very good. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I
Good.
want to let everybody know that before we started recording, we were talking about shoes and how folks have like monuments to shoes in their closet and how those shoes don't get creased nor worn. And
No. And I think the general consensus is we're not on board with we're on board with just wearing the shoes.
that's it. If I buy it, they're good on the feet. I'm going to wear them. But somehow we're going to transition from
Yes.
sneaker talk to leader talk. We're going to make it happen. So I think everybody knows this, but just in case you don't, Scott LeMay has been the mayor of Garland since 2019. And that's after serving 3 consecutive terms as a council member.
Yes.
And as we'll get to in just a little bit, you're coming to the end of the road.
It is. It is here. Yes. It's one of those things that has always been going to happen.
Right.
But it has always been way out in the future, and now it's give or take 6 months from now.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I've got some questions about
Okay.
that, and I'll get to those in just a bit.
All right.
So here's the first one. So after serving as a council member for 3 consecutive terms, when did it become mayor? How has the position evolved over the years? I mean, you've gone from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic,
Yeah.
and how's it evolved?
I mean, going from mayor or going from a council member to the mayor's spot, I will tell you to back up even further than that. It was not my life's ambition
Okay.
to go into municipal government and politics. It is just something that just sort of happened, and I served my 6 years as a council person and enjoyed it. Was very content at that point when I would have termed out in 2019 of just going on, living my life, and getting back to some sort of normalcy.
Right.
And it was suggested to me, maybe you should think about running for mayor. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's what I want to do.
Right.
And it's one of those things of people seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Sure.
And so I ran for mayor, became mayor in May of 2019. And, as I came into office, we had just approved the 2019 bond package. And so we were very focused on getting that package up off the ground and just going.
Right.
And it was going great. And then this story started appearing in the news.
Mm-hmm.
About this virus and it had different names and all these things, but it was just kind of percolating in the back.
Sure.
We didn't, and then it started to become more real. It started to become it moved up in the news cycle dramatically. Right. And then one day it was here.
Mm-hmm.
And it did change a lot of things. I mean, it completely took our attention from our normal business around here, running the city, to a global pandemic and what to do and when to do it and who and all of those things. And there was no playbook.
Right.
There was no, you couldn't turn to a manual and go, okay, now we do this.
Right.
And it definitely changed how we operated. And then coming through the pandemic and then on the other side of it, it is still impacting us. There are still those lingering things from it. But I think in the end, through all of the turmoil and everything, I have to believe that we're better coming out. We learned a lot about a lot of things.
Sure.
But we certainly learned a lot about ourselves. And so I have to hope that we are better now than we were then.
Right. So let me personalize this. What did you learn about yourself as mayor from pre-pandemic to in it to afterwards? I mean, what transformation, if any, did you see with yourself and how you lead?
Yeah, I mean, from those days, I mean, it went from this nothingness, this all far away thing, to impacting our daily lives. And we had to make, myself, the council, the city management, during that time period, especially the early days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were making decisions based on information where the ink was still wet on that information. And by the time we would meet, we would come up with a plan.
Right.
And there were quite a number of times where in 24 hours we had to change. We had to change our direction. And I think it showed how nimble we can be. Government is not known for, government is not known for being able to do that. But it really showed that we can make decisions, we can change decisions, and we can keep moving. And I hope that, again, I hope that's one of those things that we've carried forward, that, it doesn't take a year to make a decision.
Right.
You can make a decision and move on.
Right. I love that because you're talking about context. I mean, the situation created a context where you had to shift quickly.
Sure.
Whereas in non-pandemic times,
Right.
it can be very easily to move just kind of slowly.
Well, and yes, I mean just because you think about something for a long time doesn't mean that the answer you come up with is any better. I mean,
Right.
so
I love that. So that's not even something I'd plan to talk about, but I think that's one of a great leadership nugget of wisdom right there. It's just
yeah,
being nimble
absolutely.
and the value it brings,
Absolutely.
especially when you can be nimble or
Right.
when you have to be nimble.
Right.
So, well, as you look back over your tenure as mayor, what's an accomplishment, like maybe the greatest or a couple of the biggest accomplishments that you will look back on and say, you know what, that's what we did.
Yeah,
As I
as I said, in May of 19, when I was elected, the voters overwhelmingly had approved the 2019 bond package. And that bond package has been transformative for the city, physically and emotionally, if you will. For many years, as an organization, as a city, we self-limited ourselves. You look at the other cities and what they have, and whether the citizens are like, and we're like, well, why can't we have that? And we had told ourselves for so long that, well, we can't afford that. We can't do that. We can't have that. And the citizens spoke very clearly in those bond study committees. They wanted new, improved, better amenities and infrastructure and all of those things. And we said, we want those things too,
Right.
but here it comes with a cost, and here's what it costs. And they were like, great, do it.
Right.
And so that program now is probably 3/4 of the way through. We have rebuilt parks, we have rebuilt rec centers, pools, city facilities all around, and I think it's really shown what we can do when we focus on it.
Right.
And I hope that will carry forward to future bond packages, that we have proven as an organization and as a city that we can do these things. Probably the biggest thing I think in the time that I've been mayor, obviously we recently had the announcement with USL,
Right.
United Soccer League, bringing a professional sports team here to Garland. I will tell you, from the day we made that announcement, if you go back in time, talking about how slowly things can move, the very first meeting I had, which really wasn't even specific to USL, but it was about a large scale type initiative development, was 3 years, 2 months, and 4 days in the works.
Wow.
And over that time, the idea developed and it grew, and it really came down to what the announcement we had the other day. And obviously we've got more information coming out on that.
Right.
But I think that is one of those. It sounds very cliche to say, but it's one of those very once in a lifetime opportunities. Not just for me but for the city.
Right.
This is something that I think will I think this is something that will benefit the city long term, long time to come, and it works, it fits here,
Right.
and so I think that if I were to make a list, certainly the bond package, but the USL announcement is right up there as well.
Excellent. Well, as I hear you share all that, I'm reminded. So I've been in Texas for 10 years, and really the first city I came to was Garland,
Right.
and just not only hearing what folks are saying about Garland, but now seeing this transformation. It's very neat to see how the city is really fulfilling the potential that was
Absolutely.
there all along,
100%.
and it's just
100%.
really good.
100%.
Matter of fact, last week I was talking with a guy who I met down near Palestine a few months ago, and he was up here visiting some friends, and he wound up at Fortunate Son, and he had never been to Garland, hadn't
Right.
had not been on the square, and he was just blown away by
Yeah.
how it looked, and I just, as an employee, I just felt some pride. It's like, this is my city,
Yeah,
this is Garland.
absolutely. Absolutely, and I experienced that as well. People will come, they will see some article in a magazine, and they're like, "Do you know about Fortunate Son, or do you know about this?" I'm like, "I'm very, I'm very aware of it, yes." But
Yeah.
it's, we've sort of let go of some of that very isolated, insulated ideology, and we're open to everyone, and the word has gotten out
Hmm.
of what we've done, what we're doing, what we've got going on, and you know, word of mouth travels. It
Right.
travels far and wide, and is bringing people to the city, and they're seeing those things. They're like, "Wow, I didn't know you had a blank," or and that's very that's good to hear.
Indeed. Indeed. So for this next question, I want to get back to something you said earlier. So when the opportunity became available to run for mayor, you hadn't planned on it, but you said someone saw something in you,
Yeah.
perhaps that you didn't see in yourself. What was it?
Well, you know, and you can carry this story all the way back. I got into this very inadvertently, very innocently into city government. Um, Many years ago, I got involved with my neighborhood association.
Hmm.
Through that, I met our city council member at the time. This would have been in the early 2000s. And one day he said to me, "You should run for my council seat when I term out in 2007." I was like, "That's a terrible idea." I told him very bluntly. I was like,
Right.
"That is terrible.
Right.
No, I don't. I would never want to do that." And he encouraged me to do so. And through my work, the things that I'd been doing in the neighborhood, and so I ran in 2007. I didn't get elected in seven,
Hmm.
but I was fortunate to get appointed to the Plan Commission,
Right.
which was a great opportunity for me to learn about the city, learn more about how the city operates.
Hmm.
And so when the seat came available again in 13, I ran. I was elected that year.
Right.
Um, and again, as I said earlier, I was very content, to term out in 19 and just go on, and and folks started talking to me. It's things that I don't I don't see in me.
Hmm.
I don't spend a lot of time being very introspective of what I do. I just act.
Sure.
And they said, you should run for mayor. Do this, and I was like, and again, I had very much the same response as I had earlier. I was like, that is a terrible idea. That does not sound like something I would want. No,
Right.
I would enjoy. And but sometimes you have to listen to those that advice, that encouragement,
Yeah.
and so I ran. And I will tell you, I have been even through the most awful of times that we have experienced. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoy the activity of it. I enjoy the business of it, and the interactions that I get to have with people. And it really has just become. Uh, it's really just become my life, honestly, at this
Right.
point. Which it has its positives and negatives,
Right.
but I enjoy it. Again, more for the interactions and the involvement that I get to have with people.
Got it. All right. Well, I want to pull three things out of that just to make sure that I'm going to take the case folks are hearing it, but just to be on the safe side. Number one, just how leadership matures. You ran for council, you didn't get it, then you did get on council, and then mayor. Just how there are levels to leadership, and
Right.
it matures. But then also how people were encouraging you because they saw something in you. I think that's a lesson for all of us to make sure that we are encouraging leadership in other people and perhaps pointing out something
Absolutely.
they can't see. And then the part that was probably most critical is you listened. Um, one of the things you said earlier about the city was we told ourselves, and in same way in leadership, we tell ourselves stories all the time, and the stories can be limiting. And had you listened to your story, perhaps
Right.
instead of the story of the person who was encouraging you, we might not be sitting here today.
100%. And that, losing, I've said this before, losing that election in 2007 was probably the best thing that ever happened to me and to the city
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't ready. I thought my ego told me I knew a lot,
Sure.
but reality told me differently. And it hurt to lose that election. I'd never done this before,
Yeah.
and you invest all that time and effort and energy into it, and then you come up short.
Right.
And that I can still remember that night, that like, oh gosh, I failed. But at the same time, there were people in my corner who said, you had a really good showing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to work on this, and you need to learn that, and so losing that election helped me to see what I didn't know and what I needed to know. And serving on the Plan Commission was a great opportunity,
Right.
as are all of our boards and commissions, where you get to see how the city operates and whether that's a department thing or whether that's a development thing. And it really gave me a much broader perspective than I had of coming from just a guy who really worked hard in his neighborhood.
Right.
And so, you listen to those folks and they're like, try that, think about,
Mm-hmm.
do this. And I've tried to do that as well. A lot of a lot of people come through here, and you see a lot of people who run for office. Um, Maybe they've prepared for it, maybe they haven't. But you see a lot of people run for office and they don't win.
Mm-hmm.
And you never see them again. And that is such a waste.
Hmm.
If somebody's gone to that, if you've gotten to that point, and you lose an election, it happens. But then to never see them again,
Right.
that's I hate that. I always hope that those folks would get involved with some other aspect of the city and try to grow and learn and see all those things. And I try to, people have approached me for years of, I'm thinking about running for council. I'm thinking about running for mayor, whatever. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Here's what you need to do. Here's sort of the, the basic building blocks of that. But what happens is all dependent on what you do with it.
Right.
And so, you try to encourage people to, you see someone, and they don't necessarily have to be a board or commission member, or just somebody you meet. I meet so many people, and it's like, you would be great at, running for council. And then they look at me kind of like the same way I looked at it. I'll go, and they go, that's a terrible idea.
Right.
And I said, well, it has its moments.
Yeah.
But trying to encourage those leaders out there that, they're there. The sad thing about it is there's a lot of leadership that is never fulfilled. Whether that is circumstantial or however, people. There's a lot of people out there who would be very good at doing this, who unfortunately just don't step forward. And you try to encourage that, and you try to foster that, but you have to make the commitment yourself. You
Correct.
have to understand. You have to listen to that advice, and go for it.
Right.
You know, what's the worst that can happen is you lose.
Right.
It's as by far not the end of the world.
Right. As you've proven. All right. So let's talk about you as mayor. And I'm interested in a situation where you had to make a decision and you knew that you were going to upset someone
Right.
with the decision you made. Um, if you can, tell me about that, what it was like, and then what you learned about yourself as a leader going through that situation.
Yeah. You know, I, th- I think the one event that really highlighted, I mean, obviously there was a lot of time during COVID where we were very divided on what we should do,
Sure.
and we all know that story. But there came a situation, ironically, right in the middle of all that,
Hmm.
with the death of George Floyd. Okay,
Hmm.
and the protests that were going on around the country and honestly around the world.
Right.
And one day, my phone rang, and it was a young lady on the other end of the phone, and she asked me. She says, I need permission to hold a peaceful protest. And I said, well, first off, you don't need my permission to do that.
Right.
You don't need my permission to do that. And so she told me what, she wanted to, uh, you know, she wanted to get a protest, a march together, for, because of everything that was going on with
Right.
that. And I was like, that's great. Sounds good. And I immediately connected her to Chief Bryant.
Hmm.
And I said, we'll figure this out. I was like, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm sure he will, or you will, we'll come together.
Right.
And through that interaction, this young lady who had never done anything like this, I mean, in her life, we worked with her and the group that she was with, and they had a very peaceful march. We worked out a route for them, provided security, and the march ended here downtown
Hmm.
at the square. And at the time, I knew that we're allowing that. Well, that is a right that these
Sure.
folks had to do this.
Right.
Did we assist? Sure, 100%. And I knew that that would make people angry,
Right.
because that was again another one of those very divisive events. And but I said, that if they want to do this, if they're committed to this, then we should do what we can. And so through all of that, the march ends down here on the square, and I was down there and meeting the organizers and just the people. I can't even tell you how many people. There were hundreds of people. And the next thing I know, they said, would you like to say a few words? And I'm like, oh boy, I have nothing prepared, but which is usually when I do best.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, Kevin, I am standing on the top of a picnic table with a bullhorn.
Wow.
I'd never in my life imagined that I would be standing on the top of a picnic table with a bullhorn addressing a crowd that was very angry and very just confused and mad and sad and all of these things.
Right.
And so I stood up there and I just talked to them.
Hmm.
And I first off I thanked them for doing something,
Right.
for encourage that you found your voice, right? You have found your voice. Now learn how to use it.
Hmm.
If you want things to change, you have to be involved in it. It's not going to happen for you. It's going to happen because of you.
Hmm.
And I said, the city hall was sort of right over my shoulder. And I said, we conduct meetings here all the time. And I talk to empty chairs. I encourage you to find out what we're talking about
Right.
and get involved and be a part of what's going on in person,
Hmm.
not on the internet,
Right.
not on some social media site. In person, you be here, be involved. And one of the ladies I talked to that afternoon, she said, "How do I get involved?" I said, "You apply for boards and commissions. You get, that is a great way to start." And guess what? I have said that to hundreds of people over the years. And she immediately filled out an application for boards and commissions. I appointed her to our Community Multicultural Commission. She started serving there, was doing a great job. And then another council member appointed her to the Plan Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And she's gotten involved. She took that advice
Right.
that if you want to make something happen, you need to be here to do it. And she is still serving today. And so, had she not come to that protest, had I not come down to speak to the crowd,
Right.
that would have never happened.
Right.
And so, but I knew that, there were a lot of folks who thought we shouldn't allow them to protest. I'm like, well, that's not our job to say who can or can't protest.
Right.
And so through a horrible tragedy, some good came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that the other folks who were at that protest that day heard those words and got involved, or found a way to get involved and stay involved.
Right. So you mentioned commitment. What is it that you were committed to that caused you to act in the face of disappointing some people who said, "I can't believe the mayor let them do that"? I mean, what were you committed to?
I was committed to, there are a lot of aspects of life that people, we learn about the Constitution and we learn all these things in school,
Mm-hmm.
but and the rights that we have and what it took to get those rights in place, and I think unfortunately we lose sight of that, just in our daily lives, that people have power. And they should. I want them to use it. I want them to use that voice. I want them to use those abilities they have to make, everybody was, they don't like the way things are. Well, guess what? It's not going to change for you. It's going to change because of you. And really getting people to understand that and take that to heart, because we do let apathy take over. We're like, things are never going to change, and it's always been like this, and that is very self-defeating, and that kind of goes back to the city of, we told ourselves we couldn't have, and guess what? We could have had it all along.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I love how there's a connection between what you're saying. Like you said a moment ago, people have power. But earlier you said that there's lots of leadership that's unfulfilled, and those go together. And I think whether we're acting in a way civically for Garland or in our day-to-day jobs or at home, I mean, we have power.
Absolutely.
And there's so much power that we just let go down the drain, and we're like, I wish I could do something, when all along.
We hear a lot, in government, well, somebody should fix this.
Yeah.
Somebody should do something about this. And that somebody is you.
Yeah.
That somebody is me. And we get, one of the other things that since I've been in office is, we get used to the people who represent us are removed from us. They're far away from us. The higher you go up the political chain, the further you get from your constituents. And I live here. I go to the grocery store, shop in the stores, or whatever it is, and to see that, to put a face to government, if you will, and to be involved, to be active, to be visible in what I'm doing, to hopefully show others that you don't have to have a degree in political science. Right. You don't have to, you don't have to come from a family that has always been anybody has the right and the power to do this, and I wish more people would take advantage of that.
I love that. All right, so we're gonna get to my favorite question that I love to ask folks. All right, so can you share a mistake that you've made as mayor, a mistake you've made, and what you've learned from it, like how it transformed how you lead now?
Sure. I think, of being the mayor, and there's 8 council members, right? And I went from being a council member to being the mayor, and that was an odd transition. It wasn't difficult. It was just kind of odd.
Yeah,
And so that does impact the relationships you have with the council members.
sure.
And very early on, and I've always tried to maintain relationships with the council members outside of council.
Hmm.
And I try to explain it to people. It's like having 8 brothers and sisters. You're related no matter what.
Right.
You know where each other's buttons are,
Yeah.
but you also know what the preferences are. And so I try to remain. I try to maintain some relationships with the council members outside of business, but that gets tricky sometimes.
Sure.
The line between friends and colleagues it gets tough.
Yeah.
And there's a trust amongst us, that things we say to each other or how we react to each other, that there are confidences, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's a hard line to maintain sometimes. And I did make some mistakes with that of, there's this council member who's my friend,
Right.
and then there's this council member who is my colleague on this city council, and that line can be difficult to maintain, and it's easy to betray that trust, that friendship trust versus that professional trust. And so, what it did is it made me more aware that I need to be better friends with them, with the council members. That the business that we conduct is one thing, but we are people. We are just individuals, and so that was a good learning lesson of trust, and confidence in each other.
Yeah. Got it. Well, as you were talking, I can think of some managers now in particular who have gone from being peers with others.
Yeah.
Now they've been promoted, and all of a
Right.
sudden they are
Yeah.
leading like their friends
Right.
and having to make decisions regarding their work and livelihood.
Yeah, it is a tough transition to make, and fortunately, it was not difficult, but it was not without its bumps.
Certainly. Got it. All right. Well, as we approach the end of the questions, a couple more for you.
Okay.
So the clock is ticking on your mayoral tenure, and I'm curious when it's when you're done. I imagine you're gonna take some time off to just kind of reflect, refresh.
Right.
How do you see yourself leading in the future? I mean, any thoughts about what that looks like? What it could look like?
I have. I've tried very hard not to think about it so that I could stay focused on what I was doing. But obviously, as the time draws closer,
Yeah.
I haven't put a lot of thought into it, because the day I walk out of City Hall as mayor for the last time, I still live here.
Right.
And there are lots of organizations that I'm already involved in that I will continue to be involved in, and I will continue to support the city's initiatives and the council's actions on what's going on. Mayor Jones, when he left office, I can remember the night he left off. He said to the incoming mayor, essentially, "I'm here if you need me, but otherwise I'm going to leave you alone.
Right.
And of course he said it a lot better than I do. But that's, I want the council, I want the staff to understand that, you know, I will still be here if you want my advice, if you want my opinion. You all know my phone number, but otherwise, you know, I'm leaving it in your hands, and I feel confident in that the direction that this organization is moving. Um, I have nothing but confidence that progress will be continuing, and you know what that means for me. Personally is, I'll have a lot more free time,
Right.
which I'm not sure what to do with. I haven't had a lot of free time in the last few years, but I have a car that is in need of restoration. I have a 1978 El Camino that needs
Okay.
to be
Nice.
restored, and I have about a half a dozen guitars that need to be played. So hopefully I'll spend a little time with both of those things.
So I've got it for you. You drive to a location,
Yeah.
you get on the back of the El
Yeah.
Camino, and you just do shows for people.
Yeah, I think that could work,
I'll be your promoter, and I want an 80% cut. All right, because I'm
Wow.
the one getting you these deals. All
Okay. All
right,
right.
we'll
Very
we'll
good.
we'll, we'll figure it out off
We'll work
camera.
that out.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So here's the last question. Obviously, the election is right around the corner,
Right.
and there are several mayoral candidates. What leadership wisdom would you offer to them, assuming they said, "Hey, Mayor, give us some wisdom. You've been doing
Right.
this."
I think what I would remind any of them is this is a team effort. You are one of nine. Okay. While your position may be elevated, while your profile may be elevated, you are still one vote out of nine.
All right.
And to remember that the mayor's job is to sort of find the consensus in the council members, not to direct it, but to find it and just kind of guide it to where it needs to be, and that's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have eight council members who all have eight different opinions. Even the agreeing opinions may be slightly different
Sure.
from one another, and so you have to find that consensus. But at the same time, understand that you are one of nine. You are always one of nine, and it's not about your agenda. It's about the city's agenda and the council's agenda, and that I think is probably the best advice I can give you, and to understand that you need to be focused on what's at hand. The current plans, the current initiatives, but at the same time, you've got to lift your eyes a little bit and look at the horizon, and know, what's next. Look for what's coming next. When we made the transition from city managers from Brian Bradford to Judd Rex, one of the first meetings I had with Judd was, what's next? We need to be looking at what's next,
Right.
because, as we mentioned earlier, government is not known for fast,
Mm-hmm.
and so initiatives take time, but you've got to be looking just above the horizon to see here's where we need to be headed, and so focus on the day to day, obviously the
Right.
current, but be looking ahead, at where the city is headed, where we're going.
Got it. And I really get how the mayor needs to be looking for a consensus among
Yeah.
the council. Because I think really, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, that seems to go against. It's like, oh, the mayor's in charge. The mayor gets to make the decisions. But
Right.
I love this. You're like more like a conductor in an orchestra, bringing the pieces together to find this is what the sound is like, where it really works, where we can make the most difference.
Well, it's really easy is to say that the council members don't work for the mayor.
Yeah.
The council members work for the people in their districts,
Yeah.
and while they may have to defer to the mayor,
Sure.
they don't necessarily have to agree with the mayor,
Right.
and they don't have to agree with each other,
Right.
and so you've got to find consensus in there some days, and some days it's small,
Hmm.
some days it's minor little things, but then there are times when there are big differences that you've got to figure out how to get beyond or around, and where can we? There's give and there's take, and I think unfortunately in this day and age that gets lost.
Sure.
That compromise has become a bad word, but there is always compromise in there that can get the job done.
Right. Awesome. Well, as I wrap up, I want to tell you the story I thought about as soon as we started talking. This was it must have been 2019.
Okay.
I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity, and we were doing a grand opening, presenting a key to a new homeowner. And I remember you were there, you spoke, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, there's the mayor. And because I didn't see you a whole lot because I wasn't working for the city at that point.
Right.
But it's just really neat, like all these years later, that I'm having this opportunity to sit down with you and talk about leadership. But I just remember that was the first time I saw you. And I remember thinking back then, and it's the same now. It's like, I love how understated you are as a leader. It's not, hey, look at me. I'm the guy. I just love how you're you,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you command the respect. Number one, because of the position you're in, but then number two, just the way you carry yourself. And I wanted to acknowledge that and just thank you for not making it be about you, but rather
appreciate that.
about the city that you're serving.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for watching today's episode of Leader Talk. So many great leadership nuggets in here about encouraging other people when you see the good in them and letting them know that. And also when other people are telling you good about you, not just knocking it down, but actually listening. Not just seeing that something needs to be done and assuming somebody else is going to be doing it, but rather remembering that you have power and you can jump in and get something done. Yes, even in that department where it feels like things have always been the same and nobody's going to listen, be the one and jump in and get involved. And that leadership matures, and the more you lead at different positions, it will mature. And so, thanks for watching this month. I hope you took a lot from it, and we will see you next month for the next Leader Talk. Thanks. Bye bye.